I remember the first time I saw a black ship. It didn't glide through the void, it tore through it. The stars around it dimmed, as though even the light itself was afraid to touch its hull. The Vox was silent. The void shield shimmered faintly, and still every soul aboard our vessel could feel the weight of its arrival. There was something in the air, a tension that crawled beneath the skin, whispering in the language of fear. They said the Emperor's will rode within those ships, but I swear I could feel something else, something watching from the dark between the stars. We were told to lower our gaze. We did, and in that moment I understood. Obedience wasn't loyalty in the Imperium, it was survival. They call them black ships, but that name is too kind. What sails within them is not meant for mortal eyes, and if you listen closely, you can still hear the faint hum of their holds. 1,000 souls crying in silence, carried toward a golden throne that never answers. Before we descend deeper into this story, into the corridors of silence and faith where the Emperor's most terrible truth hides, take a moment to join this journey. If you wish to see the forgotten corners of the Imperium, to wander through the whispers they forbid, then stay close. Subscribe, share this story, and keep the Vox open, because once you hear the song of the black ships, you can never unhear it. The silent arrival. I had been drifting through the void for 47 standard days when the stars began to die. At first I thought it was fatigue, the kind that settles deep into your bones when you've stared too long through reinforced glass, watching eternity pass in silence. But then the Auspex readings began to fade, one by one, until the void outside became a flat black mirror. No static, no signal, just absence. Our vessel, the Mournful Dawn, was a simple merchant hauler, a rusted skeleton built for slow, honest trade between the outer fringe worlds. We carried machine parts, rations, and barrels of promethium that leaked their stench through the cargo decks. Nothing worth notice, nothing worth fear. Yet the void had grown colder. Even the servitors wired into their stations began to twitch, a stutter in their mechanical breathing that made the deck plates tremble. Then came the silence. It wasn't the absence of sound, when it was heavier than that. It pressed against the hull, against the mind. The Vox went dead. The engine's hum became a distant memory. And still no one spoke. We all felt it, that invisible pulse rippling through the ship like a warning. The first to break was Deck Officer Hale. His eyes rolled back, and he fell against the console, muttering in a language none of us recognized. It wasn't low Gothic, it was older, colder. The medici rushed to him, but Hale was gone before they arrived. The smell of burnt ozone filled the air, and the Auspex flickered, once, twice, before displaying a single icon. A black sigil burned onto the display, the inquisitorial seal. I remember the way my throat closed. Even the captain, a man who had stared down pirate raiders and warp storms with Demumbon, went pale. His hand shook as he ordered all stations to stand by. We knew what that sigil meant. Not inspection, not rescue, judgment. Through the viewport, the stars began to twist as though dragged aside by invisible hands. From the distortion, something vast emerged, a shadow blotting out the cosmos. No engines flared, no signal declared its name. It didn't arrive. It manifested. The hull was blacker than the void around it, patterned with faint lines of silver script that moved like veins beneath glass. I could feel it, not through my eyes but through my skull. The low, endless hum of psychic containment fields. The temperature dropped another degree. My breath fogged in the recycled air. Someone whispered, "A black ship." That word spread like a contagion. Black ship. The very syllables carried weight, as if the air grew thicker each time they were spoken. None of us dared look too long, though the viewport drew our gaze like a confession booth. And in that moment I understood what the ecclesiarchy meant when they said fear was holy. A transmission came through, one sentence only, spoken through a voice that wasn't entirely human. Prepare for docking. Obedience is survival. The Vox went dead again. No one moved for a long time. The engines still thrummed beneath the deck, though faintly, as though the ship itself was holding its breath. I turned toward the captain. His face was drawn, his eyes sunken into the kind of dread that men earn through faith or sin. "Sir," I said softly, "do we respond?" He didn't answer. He didn't need to. Above us, the hull began to groan. the metallic scream of a vessel larger than cities aligning for capture. And as the first tremor ran through the mournful dawn, I swore I could hear something beneath the noise. A heartbeat, slow, distant, not human. The stars had gone. Only the black ship remained. The docking clamps struck like thunder. The whole ship shuddered, lights flickering as if the void itself had exhaled through the hull. I felt the vibration crawl up my spine, a shiver that had nothing to do with cold. Outside there was no flash of light, no welcoming beacon, only that impossible shadow pressing against us. The mournful dawn was a grain of dust before a god. We gathered at the lower bay, ordered there by Command Vox before it, too, went silent. The crew stood in rows, helmets under arms, faces drained of color. Even the servitors were still, as if the machine spirit itself dared not move. I could hear my own breathing through the rebreather, harsh, too loud, and somewhere behind me, a man whispered a prayer to the God Emperor. It sounded brittle. Then the airlock hissed. No announcement, no ceremony. The pressure door opened with a heavy sigh and the air turned thick, smelling faintly of incense and ash. Figures emerged, robed, masked, their faces hidden behind obsidian visors etched with the imperial aquila. They walked with a calm that was not human, each step measured as though time itself had to move aside for them. The leader carried a staff topped with a golden seal. He paused just inside the threshold, head turning slowly, scanning us like data across a slate. By authority of the Inquisition and under decree of the Navi's nobility, the voice said, filtered through a vox grill that distorted the edges of speech into something metallic. This vessel is under observation for Psyker contamination. You will obey without hesitation. No one spoke. No one breathed. He raised his hand, or gloved, marked with script that glowed faintly blue. Behind him, 2 Skitari enforcers stepped forward, their augmetics hissing softly. Between them floated a small drone, a cherub, half flesh, half machine, its tiny wings twitching as it recorded every face with its optical lens. They began the inspection. Not of cargo, of souls. One by one, the inquisitorial acolytes walked through our ranks, holding auspex rods that hummed when passed near certain men. Those chosen were marked with a drop of black wax on their uniforms. None of us knew what that meant, but we all guessed. When the rod passed near me, I felt it, not the hum, but the pull. A faint tug deep behind my eyes, as though something inside me had leaned toward it. The acolyte paused. The humming grew louder. My mouth went dry. But then he frowned, adjusted a dial, and moved on. Relief came sharp, painful, like inhaling too fast. But it was short-lived. The next man down the line, a quiet deckhand named Rin, was marked. His lips trembled as the wax touched his sleeve. I met his eyes once, he mouthed. Why? They never answered him. By the time the inspection ended, 17 of us bore the mark. The rest stood in silence, not daring to move. The Inquisitor turned again toward the captain. These souls are claimed by the Emperor, he said simply. Prepare them. Prepare? The captain asked, his voice shaking despite the effort to hide it. For what purpose? The Inquisitor's visor turned toward him, and though no face was visible, the weight of that gaze was unbearable. Purpose is for the throne, the voice said. Faith is for you. Then they took the marked. No resistance, no explanation. The chosen were led toward the black ship through the connecting tunnel, their boots echoing hollowly on the deck. None screamed, not aloud. But I swear, as the airlock sealed behind them, I heard something else. A soft whisper carried on the recycled air. A cry without sound, fading into the hum of machinery. When the last inquisitorial figure turned to leave, he paused beside me. For a moment, his visor tilted upward, studying my face. You have heard them, haven't you? He said quietly. In the silence, I froze. Heard what? He leaned closer, his voice dropping to a whisper I could barely catch. The ones who dreamed too loud. And then he was gone. The door sealed, the bay lights dimmed, and the mournful dawn floated once again in the quiet void. Only now that quiet was heavier, wrong, as though something unseen had taken notice. Karnan was still listening. Night came slowly aboard the mournful dawn. There was no sun to mark its passing, only the dimming of deck lights and the whisper of servitors locking into rest mode. The void outside was darker than ever, and in its shadow the black ship loomed, vast, silent, and immovable. It hadn't departed. It just waited, none of us slept. You could feel it through the walls, like a slow pulse beneath the metal. Some said it was the warp engines of the black ship cycling. Others said it was the Emperor's will. I didn't believe either. It felt older, colder, like the breathing of something vast that dreamed behind reality. The captain ordered full lockdown on non-essential decks. He didn't say it, but we all knew. He was afraid they'd come back. Those inquisitorial things, those masks, those voices, and perhaps something else, something they served that couldn't be seen. I was stationed on lower observation where the bulkhead windows faced the void. My hands shook as I logged the routine readings, though nothing about the void was routine anymore. The scanner flickered occasionally, showing phantom signals, shapes that appeared and vanished before the system could lock. One readout displayed a heat signature moving along the outer hull. I knew it was impossible. We were docked, airlocks sealed. Still, I found myself staring through the viewport, watching the faint shimmer of the black ship's shadow move against the stars. That was when I first heard it. A whisper, so soft I thought it was the air vents, but it wasn't mechanical. It had rhythm, breath, words not in sound but in thought. "Help me!" I turned sharply. No one there. The observation deck was empty. The sound lingered, distant, pleading, buried under layers of static like a voice speaking through water. The Vox unit beside me crackled to life without command. The display was dead, yet the speakers hummed. "Help me!" The same voice, clearer now. Female, trembling. I reached to shut the channel, but my hand froze halfway. Because behind the voice I heard others, dozens, hundreds. Whispers overlapping in an endless drone of fear and prayer. A choir of lost minds. The deck lights flickered. The air grew heavy, charged with static. My heartbeat hammered against my ribs as the whispers grew louder. No longer pleading, but chanting. Words I didn't know filled the air, rising into something like a hymn. I felt them pressing behind my eyes, crawling through my thoughts. Terra, the light, the throne. I slammed the Vox shut, stumbling backward. The sound cut instantly, but the echo remained, not in the air, but in my head. That was when I saw the frost. Thin veins of ice crept across the viewport glass, forming strange sigils that glowed faintly from within. The pattern was deliberate, too intricate for random cold. I didn't recognize the script, but somehow I understood it. It wasn't language. It was feeling. And it whispered the same truth every Psyker eventually learns. That thought and death share the same silence. I fled the deck. I didn't care about the report. I just wanted distance, but the ship itself had changed. The corridors seemed longer, darker as if stretched by some unseen force. Lights flickered and died behind me. When I reached my quarters, I sealed the door and pressed my back to it, listening. For a moment, nothing. Then, a knock. Soft, measured, 3 times. My throat tightened. I didn't move. Then a voice, clear as breath against my ear. "You were marked too." The air turned cold. My breath fogged in front of me. And when I looked at the small mirror bolted to the wall, I saw it. A thin streak of black wax on my sleeve. Faint, almost invisible in the dark. But it was there. Outside, the engines of the black ship rumbled, a low vibration that felt like laughter in the bones. And somewhere deep within the void between us, something listened back. The harvest of the faithful. When morning came, if you can call it that, in a place without stars, the air aboard the mournful dawn felt different, thicker, like we were breathing through someone else's lungs. The lights were dim, tinged yellow from power drain, and the corridor smelled faintly of oil and incense. I didn't need the announcement to know they had returned. You could feel the presence of the Inquisition before you saw them, a gravity in the air, the kind that made every soul want to shrink smaller. The captain's voice trembled over the Vox, calling for all crew to report to the cargo bay. I thought about hiding. The thought flickered like static. But something deeper told me it would make no difference. You don't hide from the Inquisition. You simply delay the inevitable. When I entered the bay, they were already there, the same robed figures motionless in the half-light. The airlock to the black ship was open behind them, a circular wound of black metal. Even the light from our deck refused to pass through that threshold. It simply vanished. The Inquisitor stood in front, his staff glowing faintly with gold sigils that moved like living script. Beside him, 2 adepts held data slates, their fingers sliding in perfect rhythm as they scrolled through lists of names. When they began reading, I realized what the mark truly was. Each name they spoke belonged to one of us. The marked 17. And with every name called, a new voice was erased from the ship forever. The chosen stepped forward trembling, some weeping, others whispering prayers. A few resisted, and for seconds only. The Skitarii enforcers moved like shadows, precise and silent. There were no screams, only a sound, soft and final. The hiss of tranquilizers, the thud of bodies caught before they hit the ground. I watched Rin go. His eyes were wide, unfocused, staring at something I couldn't see. His lips moved, forming the same word over and over. Light, light. Then they carried him into the tunnel. The door sealed behind him, and the hum of the airlock rose like a sigh. When my turn came, I didn't move. Couldn't. The Inquisitor's gaze found me. Beneath the visor, I felt something brush against my thoughts. Not sight, not touch, but intrusion. A flicker of memory that wasn't mine. A woman's scream. A planet burning. A face melting into gold light. I staggered, gripping the railing. He tilted his head slightly. You hear them, he said. Not a question. A statement. I tried to speak, but my voice cracked. I don't understand. Faith rarely understands, he replied. But it remembers. He turned to one of his adepts. Not yet. This one listens. And just like that, I was left standing as the others were taken. The bay emptied slowly, the sound of footsteps fading into silence. The smell of incense lingered, sharp and bitter, masking the faint copper of blood. I stayed there long after they were gone, staring at the sealed airlock. I thought I could still hear movement beyond it. Faint cries, the shuffle of bare feet. Maybe memory. Maybe not. Hours passed. The remaining crew drifted through the ship like ghosts. No one spoke above a whisper. When the ration alarm sounded, no one ate. It wasn't hunger that gnawed at us. It was the waiting. The black ship still clung to us, its shadow stretching through the decks like a parasite. That night I found the captain sitting alone in the command chamber, the lights low. He was holding something, a data slate with the names of the taken. His fingers hovered over the list like he was afraid to touch it. They say they're bound for Terra, he said without looking up, for the Golden Throne, chosen by the Emperor himself. I didn't answer. He exhaled slowly. Tell me, son, what kind of God demands silence before salvation? The Vox crackled. A new transmission came through, faint, barely audible. A woman's voice, calm, cold. The second harvest will commence at dawn. Prepare containment. The captain stared at me, and for the first time since the black ship arrived, I saw the truth in his eyes. He wasn't afraid of dying. He was afraid of being taken alive. Dawn came as a dim pulse through the ship's corridors, a mechanical cycle that tried to imitate morning, though it felt more like the beating of some vast and tired heart. The air smelled of oil and burnt incense again. The lights flickered once, then steadied, but it wasn't power fluctuation. It was the black ship breathing through us. I hadn't slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Rin's face. The blank stare, the way his lips moved like prayer even when consciousness was gone. There was something wrong about the quiet since they took him. The mournful dawn had always carried sound. Footsteps, the whir of servitors, the hum of generators. Now it was hollow. The ship itself seemed to be listening. I found myself walking toward the lower decks where the airlock joined us to the black ship. I told myself I was checking for pressure readings, but it was a lie. Something deeper pulled me there, a compulsion or maybe curiosity that bordered on madness. The corridor was empty. Only the faint red glow of emergency strips lit the path, reflecting off the steel walls like blood veins. I could hear it again, the low hum that wasn't machinery. It pulsed in rhythm with my heartbeat. Near the airlock, I stopped. The door was sealed, yes, but there was a small viewport, a slit of reinforced glass dark with condensation. I leaned closer, and for a moment all I saw was my own reflection, pale, hollow-eyed, unshaven. Then something moved beyond the glass, a shadow, slow, trembling. The lights flickered again, and through the thin mist, I saw shapes, human forms, shuffling, heads lowered. Rows of them, bound in iron collars that glowed faintly with blue light. Some were kneeling, others suspended in transparent cells like insects in amber. Their eyes were open, staring but unfocused. Lips moving silently, Psykers. Hundreds, maybe thousands. The airlock glass vibrated slightly as a low moan rippled through them, not from throats but from minds. It was a sound I felt rather than heard, seeping into my thoughts like a cold hand, and somewhere in that chorus a single whisper found me. You were meant to come. I staggered back, slamming against the bulkhead. My breath fogged against the mask. I looked around, half expecting someone to be standing there, but the hall was empty. The voice came again, softer this time. You hear us. That is why they kept you. My hand shook. Who are you? Silence. Then a faint shimmer of light through the viewport, like the flicker of dying candles. We are the tithe, the sacrifice that fuels the sun. You will understand soon. And then, nothing. The light within the black ship dimmed, the shapes vanished, and I was left staring at my reflection again. My pulse thundered in my ears. I turned and ran. By the time I reached the mid-deck, the alarm klaxons were blaring. A red emergency glyph flashed across the monitors. Containment breach, Section 4. The captain's voice barked orders through the vox, short, panicked, unlike him. Seal all bulkheads. Do not engage. The Inquisition will handle it. I stopped beside an auxiliary viewport. Outside, tendrils of black smoke drifted between the two ships. No, not smoke. Something thicker. It clung to the hull, writhing like living shadow. The servitors near the viewport began to convulse, their eyes rolling back as static poured from their vox grills. One of them turned toward me, its voice spitting fragments of words through distortion. Light, hunger. The throne bleeds. I stumbled backward as sparks burst from its sockets. Then silence again, except for one sound, faint and rhythmic. Footsteps. The Inquisitor emerged from the smoke like a phantom. His visor was cracked, his robe scorched. Behind him, Skitari dragged a limp body, one of ours. A crewman. He twitched once, then went still. The Inquisitor's voice was calm, measured, though his armor steamed with frost. Containment restored. The Emperor's mercy endures. He turned toward me. You should not be here. I saw them, I said. My voice broke halfway. The ones you took. They're still alive. Alive? The word left his vox like a laugh. You misunderstand what that means aboard a black ship. I didn't reply. Couldn't. He stepped closer, his hand brushing the air near my temple. Not touching, but feeling. You hear the echo, he murmured. Good, you'll help us keep them quiet. What do you mean? You were marked for a reason, he said simply. The mark chooses. It listens through you. Then he turned away, giving a short command. The Skitari lifted the dead crewman and carried him toward the dark corridor connecting to the black ship. The Inquisitor paused at the threshold. Pray tonight, he said. It will be your last night as only yourself. He left and I was alone again, surrounded by humming metal and the faint whisper of voices bleeding through the hull. The hum returned that night, low, steady like the heartbeat of something enormous and unseen. The walls of my quarters seemed to breathe in rhythm with it. Each pulse brushed against the edges of my mind, softer than a whisper yet heavy enough to bend thought itself. Sleep refused me. Even closing my eyes felt dangerous, as if the darkness behind my lids was watching back. I sat on the edge of my bunk, the flickering lumen above me painting faint halos on the metal. My hands trembled when I noticed it, a faint shimmer beneath the skin of my wrist. The mark. It wasn't ink. It wasn't even burn or scar. It was alive, faintly glowing with veins of gold that pulsed to the rhythm of that deep sound through the ship. I pressed my fingers against it, cold. Yet when I touched it, a feeling surged up my arm, not pain, not warmth. Something between. A voice surfaced inside me. Not words, not yet, just presence. Then came a flicker. Images bright and soundless. A great spire reaching into endless night, figures kneeling in chains of light. A burning throne surrounded by rivers of ash. I gasped, clutching my head. The room seemed to warp around me. For a heartbeat, the floor felt like glass beneath an ocean. Shadows moving under the surface. Then I heard it again, the same whisper from the viewport. You are hearing the harvest now. You are inside it. I turned toward the door. It opened by itself. The corridor beyond was darker than before, stripped of its usual hum. Only the emergency glyphs glowed on the walls, faint red like dying embers. My feet carried me forward before I even decided to move. Each step echoed too long, as though the corridor were stretching. Somewhere ahead, a door hissed open, the same sealed path toward the black ship. This time, the lock was broken. I should have turned back. But the whisper inside the mark guided me forward. The air beyond the threshold was colder. The black ship was nothing like ours, its metal darker, older, carved with symbols that shifted subtly when I looked away. The corridor tilted slightly, like a spine bending beneath unseen weight. Voices drifted through the walls, hundreds of them. Not speaking, not screaming, and dreaming. I followed the sound until I reached a chamber that hummed with power. A great glass cylinder stood in the center, filled with thick vapor. Within it, floating motionless, was something shaped like a man, or what was left of one. Its flesh was pale, stretched thin over bone. Cables ran from its skull, feeding into the walls. Its eyes were open but white, and from its mouth spilled faint golden mist that twisted into strange geometric patterns before dissolving. A figure stood beside the cylinder. "The Inquisitor. You shouldn't be here," he said, voice calm, eyes not leaving the chamber. But perhaps the mark wanted this. What is that?" He finally turned. "That," he said softly, "is what becomes of those who serve too well. A Psyker whose mind no longer belongs to him, yet whose body still feeds the throne." The whisper in my head grew louder, urgent. "He lies. The throne feeds on us all." I pressed my palms against my ears. "Stop it!" But the Inquisitor stepped closer. "You hear them clearly now, don't you?" His voice carried strange pity. "That's the mark." The Emperor's gaze. "You were chosen not to die, but to listen." The mark flared, blinding gold. The room dissolved. For an instant, I was elsewhere, floating in vast darkness. Beneath me, millions of lights, each one a soul, flickering like candles on a black sea. Some burned bright, some dimmed, some vanished completely. And above, a colossal shadow stirred, vast wings of fire and ash. I felt it look at me, and I understood. The black ships were not prisons. They were veins. And we, the Psykers, the chosen, the marked, were the blood that kept the corpse of the Imperium alive. The moment shattered. I collapsed onto the floor, gasping. The Inquisitor loomed above me, face unreadable. "So now you see," he said quietly. "Now you understand why silence is mercy." He reached for the sidearm at his belt. But before he could raise it, the lights died. From the walls came a single voice. Not mine. Not his. The Hive's. "The mark is awake," and the ship began to scream. The voice beneath the throne. The ship howled like a dying god. Bulkheads buckled and the air turned to static. I could taste metal in my mouth as if the vessel itself were bleeding. Vox sirens blared through the corridors. Yet beneath the alarms, another sound emerged. Deeper, older, the same tone that had haunted my dreams since we left Terra. I crawled toward the flickering lumen above, my vision shaking, my lungs burning from the smoke that filled the hall. The Inquisitor was gone. Only the cylinder remained, shattered, its contents spilling across the floor in threads of golden vapor that crawled like serpents toward me. I tried to rise, but the mark on my wrist burned, searing through bone. Then came the voices, not whispers this time, but 1,000 overlapping words layered like hymns sung backward. "You are the echo, you are the return, you are the bridge." The vapor reached my skin and sank into me. My veins lit up like star maps. I felt the ship's pulse inside my chest, its pain, its fear. For the first time I realized, the vessel wasn't just carrying Psykers. It was built from them. Every circuit, every conduit, every whispering wall, alive, aware, screaming. I stumbled down the hall. The air vibrated with memories. Each step triggered fragments of thought that weren't my own. Moments from other minds, other lives consumed by the Hive's will. A child crying for her mother. A soldier whispering prayers before his mind fractured. A navigator begging for sight as the warp ate his eyes. Then came silence. The hum vanished, and with it gravity. I drifted through the corridor, suspended in motionless air. All light bled into gold and the ship peeled away. For an instant I wasn't inside a vessel at all. I was standing in the heart of something vast, in a cathedral of bone and light stretching beyond reason. Chains of living metal connected bodies to thrones, thrones to engines, engines to the great flame burning at the center. It was not fire. It was thought much raw, divine, and endless. And within that light I saw him. Not clearly, never clearly, but as an outline in the brilliance, seated upon an impossible throne of flesh and circuitry. Rivers of gold flowed from him, each one carrying fragments of lives, billions of Psykers feeding the blaze that guided humanity through the warp. But there was something else, a shadow beneath the light, almost human watching me through the blaze. Its eyes were calm, sad, and then the voice spoke, not from the light but from within me. "Do you think I wished for this?" The words echoed through every nerve in my body. My throat tightened. "What are you?" "I am what remains when purpose outlives mercy, when faith devours truth." The light around the throne flickered. The shadow leaned closer. "You call it salvation. I call it hunger." Suddenly the vision fractured. Screams tore through the gold and I fell, back into the corridor, gasping. The hum returned, louder than ever, shaking the walls. Sparks rained from the ceiling as the hive bled golden vapor again. Through the chaos I saw the Inquisitor. Alive, scorched, his eyes glowing faintly blue. "You saw it, didn't you?" he rasped. "The throne." Speaking through the mark, I could barely nod. He holstered his weapon, his hands trembling. "Then you understand what we carry. Every voyage, every harvest, every soul torn from the black, all of it feeds that." The floor trembled. Machinery groaned. Somewhere above us, the sound of tearing metal thundered like a god's heartbeat. "The hive is merging," he whispered. "The throne is calling for more." Before I could ask what he meant, the wall split open, and something stepped through. It had no shape, only density. The air bent around it, light bending as though swallowed by gravity. The screams of 1,000 Psykers echoed through its movement. And then, in the center of its mass, I saw faces, dozens, hundreds. Some I recognized from the cages in the black ship's hold. They were alive. They were part of it. I froze. "What is that?" The Inquisitor's face went pale. "The choir," he whispered. The Emperor's voice made flesh. It turned toward me. And I understood, and it wasn't coming to kill me. It was coming to speak. The choir's approach silenced everything. The alarms died mid-scream. Even the groaning of metal froze in its throat. It was as though the universe itself drew a breath and refused to release it. The thing before me pulsed with 1,000 faint faces, flickering in and out of view like candle flames caught in a storm. When it finally spoke, the sound didn't travel through air. It came from inside bone, a resonance that bypassed hearing altogether. "Do you know why you were marked?" My mouth opened, but nothing emerged. My tongue felt heavy as if coated in molten lead. "You believe we are prisoners," it continued, "that we are the fuel of a dying god. But we are the god now, fragments of his will united by devotion. The throne burns because we remember him." I tried to think, but the words tangled into one another. Behind its voice others murmured. Children, soldiers, priests, every tone of humanity woven into one endless psalm. "I saw him," I managed. "He spoke to me. He said it was hunger." The choir's form flickered, the faces twisting with sudden grief. "And yet hunger is the purest faith, child. To crave the light, to offer yourself willingly to be consumed, and that is devotion beyond question. Do you not feel it now inside the mark?" I looked down. The golden veins had spread across my palm, climbing up my arm, beating in rhythm with the hive's pulse. Every throb filled me with warmth, not pain, not bliss, but something in between. A balance so precise it felt divine. The Inquisitor raised his weapon. "Don't listen to it. It's a fragment of the warp, a distortion of the Emperor's echo." But even he hesitated. The light from the choir reflected in his eyes, and I saw doubt trembling there. The creature turned toward him. "You of all men should understand. You have carried the word across systems. You have burned worlds in his name. Yet even you have wondered, does he still hear you?" The Inquisitor's grip faltered. The weapon lowered an inch. "He does not answer because he never left. He simply became us." The words rippled through the corridor like heat bending the air. I felt them sink into me, deep as marrow. And in that instant I saw everything. The warp storms folding around Terra like petals of an iron flower. The endless line of Psykers carried from world to world, their souls drifting upward like sparks. The great light of the Astronomicon trembling under the weight of each offering. If the choir spoke truth, then the Emperor was not a single being anymore. He was multiplicity, a network of minds, Human, divine, broken, beautiful, and all fused into one. The mark on my arm flared. My vision blurred. I was standing somewhere else again. Not the ship, not the throne, but a space between. The void hummed with the sound of heartbeats. A voice rose from behind me. Faint, human. You can end it. I turned. The Inquisitor stood there, though his body was fading, his outline dissolving like smoke. Destroy the hive's heart, he said. Sever the choir's link before it consumes what's left of us. The choir's presence pressed closer. End it, you are it. I felt torn between them, duty and revelation, obedience and awakening. My mind split down its center, light and dark spilling into one another. The ship shuddered again. Somewhere deep below, something vast awakened, its voice rising through every metal seam. The engine hymn of the hive, the pulse of the throne reaching out across the stars. The choir extended a limb of light touching the mark on my wrist. My skin dissolved into gold. Listen, it whispered, and you will hear what even gods fear to speak. The world fractured into sound. I fell forward into a storm of voices, a sea of prayers, screams, and half-remembered dreams, each one calling from the core of the Imperium itself. And within that chorus, one voice rose above all others, quiet but undeniable, ancient as the throne itself. Help me. Then everything went black. When consciousness returned, it did not return gently. It struck like a hammer against glass. My lungs filled with the taste of ash and static. I opened my eyes to find myself submerged, not in liquid, but in light. Thick, golden radiance moved around me like slow water. I could breathe it. It hummed through my chest, each breath in time with the rhythm of something colossal just beyond perception. The hive was alive around me, not a ship anymore, but an organism. Walls of metal curved and flexed like ribs around a heart. Cables pulsed like veins carrying streams of molten data, each droplet a life, a soul. I saw them moving through the conduits, their faces twisting in silent prayer as they were pulled toward the center. I tried to move, but the light held me. My mark burned brighter now, no longer confined to my arm. The gold had reached my neck, my chest, my eyes. It was no longer spreading. It was becoming. And then I saw it. The heart. It wasn't a machine, nor a chamber, nor even a single shape. It was every form at once: cathedral, engine, mind. Within it, a great sphere pulsed, not solid, but woven from strands of memory. Inside that sphere floated countless Psykers, their bodies weightless, their minds fused into the golden storm. Every one of them glowed with the same mark that now burned through me. They weren't prisoners, they weren't alive either. They were voices, every sound the Imperium ever called a prayer, every cry, every vow, every last whisper offered to the Emperor, passed through them. The hive was the throat of the galaxy, and this was its tongue. I reached out. The light answered. My fingers brushed the surface of the sphere, and the universe unfolded. Suddenly, I was everywhere. Through the warp, I saw fleets burning across the void. I saw shrines on distant worlds, their priests screaming his name to the sky. I saw planets dying not from neglect, but because their sacrifice kept the Astronomicon burning. And beneath it all, I felt him, not as a man, not as a god, but as a memory trapped in endless translation. Every soul that prayed to him was devoured and reborn, translated into fuel for the light. The Emperor did not hear prayers. He became them. The choir's voice returned, gentler now. Do you see, child? We are not slaves. We are the song that keeps the stars alive. But the cost, I whispered. It never ends. Nor should it. As long as the song continues, humanity endures. To end it would be to let the void swallow all. The sphere pulsed. I felt its warmth turning cold, as though it wanted something from me. A question formed, heavy and impossible. Would I join them? Would I let go, dissolve into the choir, lose myself, and become another note in the endless hymn that sustained the throne? Or would I resist and risk silence? The mark on my wrist pulsed harder, demanding an answer. I could feel my thoughts beginning to slip, melting into the golden current. For a heartbeat, I almost surrendered. The peace was unbearable, the serenity of utter oblivion. Then I heard a different sound, a human sound, screaming. Somewhere, deep below the heart, the Inquisitor's voice tore through the golden calm. "Fight it, it feeds on belief, don't let it take you." The light around me twisted, angry now, streaks of red bleeding through the gold. The choir howled, not in words, but in betrayal. The peace shattered. I fell from the sphere, crashing into darkness. The golden fluid drained from my lungs. I lay gasping on the cold floor of what used to be the engine chamber. Sparks rained from torn conduits. The hive's pulse had faltered, its hum now ragged, broken. The Inquisitor stumbled toward me, blood streaking his face. His left arm was gone, vaporized. He pressed something into my hand, a small cube etched with the aquila, pulsing faintly. "Heart-kill key," he rasped. "One touch, and this hive dies." The mark on my arm flared, rejecting it. The choir's voice echoed through the chamber again, trembling with grief. "Child, if we die, the light goes out. The Astronomicon will fade. The Imperium will be blind." The Inquisitor's gaze was desperate, pleading. "Then let it go blind," he said. "Better darkness than this endless burning." I stared at the cube. Its light was weak. My hands shook. The mark burned like a wound, one half begging to preserve, the other to destroy. I didn't know what was right anymore, only that both choices would break the galaxy in different ways. I closed my eyes. The hum stopped, and in that silence I finally heard the truth. The throne wasn't asking for faith, it was begging for release. The light that devours silence had weight. After the hum died, it pressed down on me like gravity, thick and final. The air inside the hive turned still, as though every atom was waiting to see what I would do next. The cube in my hand felt impossibly heavy, not from its mass but from what it contained. One pulse, one act of will, and an entire chain of light stretching across the galaxy would unravel. The mark on my arm flared again, angry, pleading, alive. I could feel the hive's pulse crawling back to life around me, hesitant and uneven like the first breaths of a wounded beast. The choir's voice whispered from the walls, not with command but with sorrow. "If you end this, everything will fall. The stars will drift without guide. The warp will swallow what remains. Humanity will drown in its own dark." The Inquisitor's voice, faint now, trembled through blood and static. "It's already drowning," he muttered. "You just can't see it. Every prayer, every life consumed. It's not salvation. It's a cage built from faith." He fell to his knees, his face pale, his breath shallow. The smell of burned flesh and ozone filled the chamber. "Do it," he whispered. "End it before the galaxy forgets what mercy feels like." I looked between him and the mark. The two voices, human and divine, collided inside me, warring for dominance. The choir pressed closer, its tone shifting from persuasion to desperation. "Child, do you think this is cruelty? We suffer so others do not. We burn so the lost can find their way home. This is not a curse, it is devotion." I could feel their pain in every syllable. A billion minds linked in perpetual offering, each one believing their suffering kept the Emperor's flame alive. It wasn't a lie, it was faith, and faith was stronger than truth. The hive trembled. Conduits split open, spilling streams of golden mist that slithered along the floor, reaching toward me. I stepped back, the cube trembling in my grip. The mist coiled around my legs, not to restrain, but to beg. "You don't have to destroy us," the choir whispered. "Join us, your mark was not punishment, and it was calling. You were chosen to speak where others screamed." And then, for the first time, I saw what it offered. Not death, not servitude, but union. The hive wanted to merge with me, to let my mind become the thread that wove the living network together. If I accepted, I would not vanish, I would be everywhere. Every prayer, every voice, every thought reaching toward the throne would pass through me. I could guide them, shape the song itself, maybe even ease the suffering, but I would cease to be me. The Inquisitor coughed, his blood dark against the metal. "You think it will let you guide it?" he rasped. "You'll vanish like the rest." Another voice in the choir, another cog in its lie. The cube pulsed again, responding to my heartbeat. Each flash sent waves through the chamber. the golden mist recoiling, the walls groaning like beasts in pain. I fell to my knees. The hive's hum returned not as a machine's rhythm, but as music, sorrowful, vast, beautiful. Through it I heard them all. Psykers whispering their last thoughts. Soldiers dying on nameless worlds. Children on hive planets praying to a god they'd never see. All of it reached me through the mark. Each word a spark, each spark a life. And for the first time, I realized the impossible truth. The Emperor's light didn't come from the throne. It came from them, from every soul who had ever believed, feared, or hoped. The hive wasn't feeding on humanity, it was humanity. Destroying it meant ending the song that bound mankind together. But if I joined, if I merged with it, maybe I could change the harmony. Maybe I could make it remember mercy. The floor split open beneath me. The heart revealed once more, a sphere of gold and shadow, spinning like a sun trapped inside the ship. The choir's voice reached from it, soft as breath. Choose, marked one. Become our voice and silence us forever. The Inquisitor's eyes met mine, filled with pain and conviction. End it, he said again. Even the Emperor would weep for what's become of his dream. The mark on my arm blazed, light searing through flesh and memory. The cube burned cold in my hand. Above me, the walls pulsed with the faces of the choir, waiting, trembling, weeping. I raised the cube. The hive held its breath. And in that moment, between life and extinction, I finally understood what the voice beneath the throne truly wanted. Not to rule, not to consume, but to be heard. I pressed my thumb against the cube. The light exploded, not white, not gold, but something beyond both. It filled the chamber with a brilliance so absolute that it devoured shadow, thought, and sound. For a heartbeat, I felt everything, and then nothing. The light didn't fade. It fractured. It tore itself apart in waves, scattering across the hive like shards of a dying star. Every wall screamed with energy as the metal warped, folding in on itself, trying to contain the impossible force I had just unleashed. My skin blistered under the radiance, but the pain was distant, muffled, like I was already half gone. The cube dissolved in my palm, its fragments scattered into the air, glowing symbols that burned themselves into the metal floor before vanishing. The hum returned, but it was no longer a single tone. It was a chorus. The choir was not gone. It had changed. The voices that once begged and wept were now singing, softly, uncertainly, as though waking from a long nightmare. Their sound filled every corridor, carrying warmth and sorrow in equal measure. The golden mist rose from the cracks, no longer thick and choking, but light as breath. Then I realized the hive wasn't dying. It was remembering. The Inquisitor stirred beside me, eyes wide with disbelief. "What did you do?" "I listened," I whispered. He stared at the golden currents swirling through the air, his voice trembling. "It's merging with you. You didn't destroy it. You opened it." The mark on my arm no longer burned, it flowed. My veins shimmered, threads of gold tracing every heartbeat. I felt the choir inside me, a vast ocean of voices, and for the first time they weren't pleading. They were asking, "What are we?" I looked around the ruined chamber. The hive's flesh pulsed faintly, its breath uneven but alive. I saw faces in the vapor, faint outlines of the Psykers, their features softened by peace. "You're the light," I whispered. "But you've been burning too long. You've forgotten what it means to shine without consuming." For a heartbeat, everything stopped. The air thickened with quiet reverence. Then, slowly, the choir began to change its tone. The sound that followed was unlike anything I'd ever heard. No hymn, no scream, no order, just harmony. It spread through the ship, through every conduit, every servitor's mind, every fragment of data and memory. Even the metal seemed to vibrate in sympathy. The Inquisitor crawled closer, his voice breaking. "You don't know what you've done. That sound, it'll reach the Astronomicon." I turned to him. "Then maybe it will remember what mercy sounds like." The hive trembled, but not from collapse. It was transmitting. I saw it through the mark, the pulse of the choir shooting into the warp, faster than thought, racing toward Terra, toward the golden throne itself. It carried everything, the voices, the memories, the sorrow, the love.
All of it woven into one resonant truth. We still remember you. Then came the backlash. Reality twisted.
The chamber folded in on itself, colors bleeding into one another. My body became transparent, golden veins dissolving into light. I reached for the Inquisitor, but my hand passed through him. He shouted something, but his voice was swallowed by the growing roar of the warp. The hive's walls cracked open, revealing the black void beyond. For an instant I saw the warp not as madness, but as a living ocean, wild, infinite, beautiful. And then in the distance a light stirred. Not the Astronomican's cold blaze, but a new spark, small, trembling, yet alive. The choir's voice whispered through me one last time. It hears us. The brilliance consumed everything. When the light faded, there was only silence. The hive drifted, its once golden hull now dull and cracked. The choir was quiet. The Inquisitor lay motionless beside the shattered heart. I stood, or thought I did. My feet no longer touched the floor. My reflection shimmered faintly in the broken metal. My eyes glowed, not gold, but something softer. I wasn't entirely human anymore. I wasn't entirely here, the mark was gone. In its place, a faint circle of light pulsed just above my palm, like an echo waiting to be sung. And somewhere, far beyond the wreck of the hive, a new voice joined the void. It wasn't prayer. It wasn't command. It was a whisper carried on every breeze, every warp current, every lonely thought in the dark. A whisper that said, "We are not forgotten." The last breath of the hive. The hive is silent now. Or maybe it's listening. The hum that once shook the walls has softened, like the final note of a choir fading into stone. I stand where the air still trembles, where the last echoes of the machine's breath drift through the darkness. I can't tell if I'm standing at the end of all things, or the beginning of something that no longer needs to begin. The Inquisitor's body lies still beside me. His face, once carved with duty, now peaceful, like a man who finally remembered how to dream. His rosary beads float weightless in the air, each one glowing faintly before fading one by one into the dark. The hive breathes. Its lungs are broken engines, its heart a silent core. Yet through the cracks a golden mist still leaks, whispering like soft rain on the bones of a dying god. I close my eyes, and for the first time I don't hear the choir. I am the choir. Their thoughts ripple through me, fragments of lives lost, loves buried, prayers unanswered. Each voice a single thread in the vast tapestry of what we used to call humanity. The hive remembers them all. I feel it, a pulse deep below the metal. Slow and patient, like a sleeping world beneath a frozen sea. The hive isn't dying, it's waiting. It knows what I am now. Not a savior, not a survivor. A bridge between the machine and the soul, between what was built and what was felt. I lift my hand. The light circle hovers above my palm, spinning softly, singing in a voice only the dead could understand. And through it I see glimpses. Cities reborn under quiet skies. Ships drifting in peace through the void. People kneeling not in fear, but in awe. A universe that remembers. Then the hive exhales, a deep, trembling sigh that rolls through every corridor, every memory, every star beyond its hull. The golden mist rises higher and higher until it dissolves into the void above. That's when I understand. This is the last breath of the hive. And it's not a death. It's a release. The walls split open. Light pours through, cold and endless, flooding the chamber with brilliance. The Inquisitor's body vanishes in the glow, his soul, perhaps, being carried upward with the mist. I smile, and as the light takes me too, I whisper to whatever still listens, we were never lost. We were only waiting to be heard. The hive falls silent. Its last breath fades into the stars, and somewhere beyond the warp a new dawn begins. The light beyond the silence. And somewhere beyond the warp, a new dawn begins. There is no sound here, only warmth. Like the memory of a heartbeat, distant but real. I drift through the silence, weightless, thoughtless, unbound by the steel and sorrow that once defined me. The light hums, not as a machine but as something alive. It feels like recognition, like being seen by the universe itself for the first time. I remember the hive. The echoing prayers, the screams, the endless hunger. But now all of it folds away, not erased, just quieted. Pain becomes memory. Memory becomes song. And in that golden glow I see them, shadows of humanity stretching into infinity, carried by threads of light. Millions of souls once trapped in darkness now moving together as one silent constellation. The hive was never a tomb. It was a chrysalis. Something awakens inside the light, vast, gentle, unknowable. It doesn't speak with words, but I understand. Every end was only a door. Every silence, a waiting breath. The stars open their eyes. And for the first time in 10,000 years, I hear laughter. Not cruel, not hollow, but pure, childlike, eternal. It fills the void like a tide returning home. If this is death, then it's not an ending. It's the beginning we forgot we were promised. The light grows brighter, soft, embracing, until there's nothing left but peace. And as I fade, I whisper to the stars what the hive taught me in its final breath. We were never alone. If you felt this story in your heart, if the silence, the sorrow, and the light spoke to you, then stay with us. More tales like this await beyond the veil of the stars. Stories of forgotten empires, haunted machines, and souls that refuse to die. So if you'd like to hear the next one when it awakens, like the video, share it with those who listen in the dark and subscribe, so you don't miss the next whisper from the void. Until then, sleep well, traveler, and remember, the stars are always watching.